I never really believed in the paranormal before this trip. I thought the desert was just vast stretches of sand, heat, and silence. Maybe the occasional rattlesnake or scorpion, but nothing that could scare a person out of their wits. I had been planning this solo camping trip for months, wanting to get away from everything, escape the city, the noise, the people, even the constant buzz of my own thoughts. I wanted the desert in its rawest form, untouched, empty. I drove out past sunset, the sun dipping below the dunes, leaving a sky smeared in reds and purples that made everything look unreal. By the time I reached the spot I had scouted, it was nearly dark. I unpacked my tent, set up my sleeping bag, and tried to shake off the feeling that I was being watched. The wind whispered strangely through the dunes, almost like voices just out of hearing range. I chalked it up to imagination and the isolation. Once I got inside the tent, the smell hit me. It was faint at first, almost like burnt wood mixed with something metallic and earthy, something I couldn't place. I remember sitting on my sleeping bag, turning in circles, sniffing the air, thinking maybe one of my supplies had spilled or I had accidentally left food out. But everything was sealed tight. Everything was normal. Still, that smell lingered, clinging to the tent fabric in a way that made me uneasy. I tried to brush it off, telling myself I was just tired. Maybe my senses were heightened from the heat and dehydration. I lay down, trying to sleep, but I couldn't. Around midnight, the wind died down suddenly, and the desert became almost unnaturally silent. That's when I first saw it, or thought I did. A thin wisp of smoke curled around the edge of my tent, pale gray, almost translucent. I froze, telling myself it was just my imagination or maybe a nearby campfire from someone far away. But the smoke didn't dissipate like normal smoke. It moved. It swirled as if it had its own mind. I leaned out of the tent, shining my flashlight toward the dunes, and there was nothing. No campfires, no vehicles, nothing. Just empty desert. The smoke began to creep closer around the perimeter of my tent. I pulled my flashlight back inside, holding it like a shield. The smell intensified, like something was burning but nothing was on fire. My chest tightened. Then I heard it. At first I thought it was the wind playing tricks, but it wasn't. A soft, dragging sound, like footsteps across sand, but heavier, deliberate. Not one or two steps, a rhythm that came closer and then stopped, then came closer again. I whispered to myself, "It's just the desert. It's just animals." But my gut said otherwise. I didn't have a weapon, just my backpack and flashlight, but instinctively I grabbed my flashlight and pointed it at the tent walls. And that's when I saw the shadow. I swear, I saw a figure, a thin, dark silhouette, move outside the fabric of my tent. It wasn't human. I don't think it was, at least not entirely. Its head was oddly elongated, and it moved in a way that didn't make sense for a person. When it stopped, it felt like it was staring straight at me, and I could feel it. Not with my eyes, but deep inside, like my bones knew it was there. I couldn't breathe. I was shaking so hard I could barely hold the flashlight steady. The smoke now formed a sort of veil around the figure, curling and twisting as if it were alive. I tried to rationalize it. I said out loud, "It's nothing. It's heat exhaustion. It's the desert messing with my head." I kept repeating it, trying to convince myself, but the dragging sound continued, circling my tent now, closer than before. I didn't dare look outside again. I just stayed inside, flashlight trembling, listening. Then came the whispers, soft, unintelligible at first, like wind in the dunes, but then words started forming. My name, just my name, over and over, echoing, coming from every direction. "Alex, Alex, Alex." I froze. I had never felt such fear. It wasn't loud, but it filled the tent, pressing against my chest like the air itself was speaking to me. I wanted to leave, run, but my body refused to move. My instincts screamed at me to pack up and get out, but the figure outside, whatever it was, didn't seem to want me to leave. Hours passed like minutes, or maybe minutes felt like hours. I couldn't tell anymore. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw shadows moving above me, on the tent walls, flickering in patterns that made no sense. The smell, too, kept changing. Sometimes like sulfur, sometimes like burning hair, sometimes metallic, like blood. My throat was dry, my hands shaking uncontrollably. At some point, I must have drifted into a fitful sleep because I woke up to the tent shaking. Not from the wind. This was deliberate, jarring. Something was trying to get in. I sat up, paralyzed with terror, watching the walls ripple as if something was pushing against them from outside. Then came a handprint. No, not a handprint. Something clawed the fabric, leaving black, oily streaks on the tent. My flashlight slipped from my hands, clattering to the ground, and when I reached for it, I swear I saw glowing red eyes staring at me from the smoke. Glowing. I screamed, but no sound came out. My body refused to function. I just backed into a corner, covering my head with my hands. Then, suddenly, everything stopped. The dragging sound, the whispers, the shaking, it all vanished. The silence that followed was oppressive, suffocating. I peeked out of the tent, flashlight in hand. Nothing. No figure, no smoke, just the desert, calm and endless. The smell, however, remained. Lingering, clinging to my senses, impossible to ignore. I couldn't explain it. I thought I was losing my mind. I tried to convince myself to sleep to rest, but I didn't. I stayed awake until dawn, watching the horizon, convinced that the first light of day would break the spell. It didn't. The desert seemed different in the morning, oppressive, as if it knew I had seen it. I packed up quickly, eager to leave, but even as I drove away, I felt the same presence following me, a shadow that moved just outside my peripheral vision whenever I looked into the dunes. At night, I could still smell it sometimes, faintly, and occasionally I feel that dragging sound beneath my bed whispering my name. I don't know what I experienced out there. I've read about desert spirits, jinn, and things that can't be explained scientifically, and I used to scoff at all of it. But now, I'm not so sure. There's something in the desert that watches, waits, and interacts in ways we cannot comprehend. Something that leaves its presence in smoke, in smell, in whispers, in shadows that move when they shouldn't. And I don't think I'll ever go back. I don't know if it followed me or if it was just there, patient and eternal, but I know this: I am never, ever going back to the desert alone.